All right, welcome into Between the Whistles. I'm your host, Joe Chap. Detroit Lions preseason week one is in the books. The New York Giants come to Detroit and they lose 21-16. And if you're looking for anything to come out of this game, there's a couple things that you're going to look at in particular. But number one, if there was any doubt of why the Detroit Lions signed Teddy Bridgewater, today was your answer. Today was your answer. If you're an NFC contending team, under no circumstances can you have Nate Sudfeld come in the game. Under no circumstances. None. The guy was legitimately, he was underthrowing balls, he was overthrowing balls, he was making just things look ridiculous. And when I went to practice on Wednesday, Wednesday, um, same thing. He didn't look good at all. He looked kind of shoddy. And to be honest, if you're a contending team, there's no way you can put him out there. Absolutely no way. So when the Detroit Lions signed Teddy Bridgewater, that should have been a clue of what the Detroit Lions were seeing, what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell were seeing, because we all got a glimpse of that tonight. Now, if you think I'm going to take anything out of the offense, you're absolutely out of your mind. There's nothing I can take out of the offense. I feel like the wide receivers, Chase Cota, he played pretty good. Dylan Drummond played pretty good. Antoine Green played pretty good. Jameson Williams played pretty good. But I can't take anything from those guys, because the quarterback that was thrown to them was un-NFL like. There was no NFL balls thrown to them by an NFL quarterback. Now, Adrian Martinez, he did pretty good in the final quarter and a half he played. But besides that, there was nothing that I was like impressed by the offense. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs was good. He basically was a one man show to get them get down there to, kick a field goal. But besides that, there wasn't really much that I liked out of that Detroit Lions offense. I felt like there was a lot to be desired, and I really can't judge the Detroit Lions offense or JMO, because I know JMO. A lot of people are saying that he had a bad game. I can't judge JMO. I can't judge anybody in this offensive play, any playmaker on the roster right now, because I didn't feel like there was an NFL quarterback back there. There was no understanding of who was the quarterback, and Nate Sudfeld is not the guy, and that's just how it goes. What I was impressed with, though, I was impressed with the gap control by the Detroit Lions defensive line. They really hammered down. This is a credit to Aaron Glenn. Last year against Carolina, they got gashed. They got gashed for rushing yards. They got gashed all the time. And they came back today with their second and third stringers, and they maintained gap control. You could tell that that was an emphasis, for Aaron Glenn coming into the season. Gap control, gap control. Even the young players like Jack Campbell. One of the things I loved about Jack Campbell, I'm going to tell you this right now. When he was defending that pass, when he was defending the pass and he didn't look back at the quarterback, A plus. A plus. They don't teach that enough with the linebackers. You can't look back, because when you look back, eventually what happens, I'll tell you what happens. You look back and the guy makes a quick move and he's pretty much free to get a catch. So that's why I love that. And that's a credit to Calvin Shepard. Calvin Shepard did an absolutely good job with Jack Campbell. Malcolm Rodriguez seems like he's a great player still. I think he's progressed. Derek Barnes has progressed, and then we know Alex Anzalone is going to be a pretty decent player, and Anthony Pittman looked pretty damn good too. I don't have any. I don't have any like. The defense was just. They really. I don't want to say that they're going to be a good defense, because we don't even know. It was a preseason game. There's nothing really you could take out of it, but when it's preseason, I just look at certain things, schematic things. What do they do? This is not going to be an aggressive defense in a preseason. It's going to be a vanilla defense, vanilla offense. So you're not going to get much out of either one. But when you look at it from my standpoint, gap control was huge. The way their technique was on the defense was absolutely huge. Brian Branch played absolutely out of his mind. I love the way he played, and I can't believe Brian Branch was slipped all the way to the second round to us. And I can't believe the Green Bay Packers allowed us to trade up to get this kid, because he's going to be a menace in the NFC North and the NFC, and predominantly maybe the NFL, because in game one, He showed his instincts and he showed his grit to get to Beasley and make that absolutely dominating hit. Now, we could talk about the defense. There's a lot to like. I mean, there's guys like Starling Thomas. There's guys like the Aquara brothers. I think the guys that really showed out today that I think we're starting to get a lot of like they could be cut kind of talk was the Aquara brothers, Julian Aquara and Romeo Aquara. And Julian Aquara, he talked to 97.1 The Ticket, the Lions Radio Network, after the game. And he said, look, I'm not consistent enough. I need to be more consistent. I need to be more consistent in my play. And you could tell that, he wasn't the consistent player that you hope he can be, but he made flashes. And that's what Dan Campbell and that's what Brad Holmes are really going to like when they cut down this roster. And they're going to have to make a lot of tough decisions because there are a lot of great players on this team. One of the big takeaways I take away from this game, though, and most importantly, is the depth at defensive end. I don't think in all my time being a Detroit Lions fan, covering the Detroit Lions on the Detroit Lions News, that we have ever had a defensive end depth pool like we have right now. You think about it. You have the Quara brothers. You have Charles Harris. You have Aiden Hutchinson. You have John Kaminsky. You have Josh Pascal. You have James Houston. There is a lot to love about this depth at the defensive end position because when you have depth at the defensive end position, number one, you're allowed to rush the pass. You're going to rush the pass at a really good rate because all these guys can come off the field and you can be fresh and you're not really giving up anything when a guy like Aiden Hutchinson comes off the field to get a breather. You can send in Charles Harris or Romeo Aquara or Julian Aquara. That's the things that people are not understanding. And look, I know it's preseason. There's not a lot that you can take out of it, to be honest. But the depth at the position at defensive end is absolutely uncanny. I was impressed by the defense. I was impressed by the Detroit Lions defense today. I was impressed by Aaron Glenn's technique, the schematic changes that they made, the gap control that they had. If this translates into the offseason, into the regular season, you could be looking at it potentially a top 15, top 10 defense because they do have the talent. We've seen it today. They were without Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They were without Kirby Joseph, out with Tracy Walker, out Aiden Hutchinson. And still, Alex Anzalone was out too. And still, they dominated. They played really good. And if you think about it from this standpoint, I'm going to leave you with, I'm going to tell you this right now. If the Detroit Lions offense wasn't as incompetent as they were today, the Detroit Lions defense would have absolutely smothered them. Absolutely smothered them. The Giants weren't moving the ball. I think at one point in the fourth quarter, they had like 108 yards total. The only reason that they scored the points that they got was because the Detroit Lions offense gave them the ball several times in position to score. Now, we know that could happen in the season, but when you stand your ground and you don't allow them to score touchdowns, that's great. And they forced punts in the third quarter. They forced punts in the fourth quarter. They went into the second half and they only allowed 3 points. I take a lot of pride out of that. I think you could take a lot of pride out of what the defense did today. Yes, it's the second strings and the third string and the fourth string. But look, you got to look at from this technical standpoint. The Detroit Lions defense played really, really good. And the gap control that they had in the run game was absolutely paramount. They penetrated the gaps. They didn't allow big runs. And if that translates to the season, that could be absolutely huge because what did we talk about last season? We talked about last season how they had trouble with Jalen Hurts. They had trouble with Geno Smith. They had trouble with these running guys, these quarterbacks that can run the ball. And you look at it coming out of this game today, if they maintain the same gap control that they had today, they're going to be fine. And especially with Patrick Mahomes in week 1, you know that Aaron Glenn is harping on them to be more consistent in their gap control because when they had the gap control, they were an 8-2 football team. When they didn't have the gap control, they were a 1-6 football team. The gap control is huge. And getting guys like Aiden Hutchinson a year of development, Josh Pascal a year of development, James Houston a year of development, Charles Harris, he's gonna have a full off. He had a full off season to recover off his injury. He's not coming off an injury and coming to play. Romeo Quar, same thing. He's gonna come off a full off season and he's coming ready to play. It's very scary what could happen with the Detroit Lions, especially when you think about the depth that they have at defensive end, like I just said. Um, but I was very happy with the Detroit Lions defense. I thought the Detroit Lions defense showed out. They showed me a little something today. I can't even take a look at the offense until I see Teddy Bridgewater next week. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I didn't see anything I liked. And I felt like with JMO, there was a couple passes that should have been caught, but they were also should have been thrown in a better position to get JMO the best position to make the catch. It's tough. It's tough. You know, Nate Sudfeld seems like a great guy, but honestly, like he's not the guy to be the backup quarterback for the Detroit Lions. I'm pretty sure that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes know that because they made the decision to go get Teddy Bridgewater, go get one of the best backups in the league who could potentially start for a couple teams. And he's going to be your guy as your backup to Jared Goff. And watching today, you should think you're lucky stars because he was absolutely these quarterbacks today were not NFL caliber like. And thank God your defense played the way that they did, or it could have been a lot worse. And that's a credit to Aaron Glenn. And I know Dan Campbell was saying, you know, there was a lot of things that he liked out of Nate Sudfeld. I don't think he's gonna throw Nate Sudfeld under the bus because he's a player's coach and he's not gonna do that. But if you got him off the record, I think he would be like, I don't know what the hell is going on. So look, next week's going to be another week, and they're going to go have joint practices against the Jacksonville Jaguars. You know, it used to be where preseason you get your veterans in there for 2 to 3 plays, you know, 2 to 3 series. Maybe you know the second game you throw them in for a half. But with these joint practices, they've really opened up the veterans to get some good reps, and then give the younger players, the rookies, the reps in the preseason game. So, look, great game by the Detroit Lions today, especially defensively. But there's a lot to clean up offensively, and we'll see exactly what the offense looks like with Teddy Bridgewater under center next week. I presume he will be under center next week, so we will see how the Detroit Lions offense looks with Teddy Bridgewater instead of Nate Sudfeld. Because honestly, I couldn't even give you a good opinion on the Detroit Lions offense because Nate Sudfeld was just that bad today. I'm Joe Chappa, Between the Whistles Detroit. I will see you in the next video. I have some videos coming out momentarily, and I'll be breaking down more of this Detroit Lions New York Giants game. But it's late. It's 12:40 Eastern. I rewatched the game because of the weather that was going on. So I just wanted to get this quick video up and give you what you needed to know. And video is up. It'll be up in the morning. So thank you for watching, and so please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it, and we will give you more Detroit Lions content moving forward.